Welcome, welcome. Hey, filmmakers. Welcome to the Intuitive Filmmaker Podcast presented by Blackmagic Collective. Blackmagic Collective is a filmmaker group created for and by filmmakers with a focus on education, inspiration, and networking at all levels of the industry. Our current webinars are not only work to achieve these goals, but also promote inclusion throughout the filmmaking process. We are so glad you're here. We also want to thank our sponsors, Blackmagic Design and Sigma, for always sponsoring us filmmakers. Audience, thanks for attending. Please, by all means, be in the conversation. Hello, Alex A. from Lockdown Town, USA. That's all of us. Get in the conversation in the chat box, but also there's a Q&A box. If you have a question, please ask away. Ask them the whole time. We're going to get to every question we possibly can throughout. Well, today is exciting for Intuitive Filmmaker because we have our second of our 5-part film series, Team Talk. Each Friday, there's a different team. This week, we have the team from Delicate State. Shot over the course of their actual pregnancy with cast doubling as a 2-man crew, Paula, Rhodes, and her husband, Charlie, document their impending parenthood during a time of extreme political division. Their heads remain in the sand about the greater world around them until it upends their privileged life. Now they face a situation Instagram never prepared them for, but that all women all over the world face daily, bringing life into a country torn apart by war. Let's take a look.
As the sun sets off to bed,
I'm pregnant.
It's time to rest your weary head. Under the rocket's red glow,
How would you like a grandbaby?
your dreams chase away woe.
Look at this guy.
At dawn's first light, you see all is right.
You conspiracy nut.
I'll be by your side to chase away fright.
What's that?
My star-spangled child, in the land of the free, spread wide your wings. Lucky you, lucky me.
And here we go. Let's welcome the film team who brought this to you. We have director, producer, lead actor, Paula Rhodes. We have actor who played Nurse Platt, Tara Platt. We have VFX online editor, voice talent, Dave Mattey. ADR engineer and voice talent, Stephanie Sheh. And co-founder of the Chimera project and accomplished director herself, America Young. We are all here for you guys today. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Howdy.
Watching that trailer, it gives you such chills. And I think it's scary because it seems too real and I don't like it. Could you make it stop?
I certainly started making it as a cautionary tale, and it is scaring me how close it's coming to documentary.
Babies.
I do have some of the stars themselves.
So so I know you said cautionary tale, but where actually did this film come from? Were you like, let's document the
I'll be able to hear you in just a moment.
That's what I love about the live. You get the whole deal. Well, Tara, you were in the film as an actor. Like, how did you get involved with the project?
Well, I'm a really good friend and supporter of Paula. I think she's amazing and is quite out there. And she's back, luckily. But she was working on it, and I'm always willing to work on anything that she's a part of. And so, yeah.
Aw,
Real life momming moment there, guys.
I love it. It's a disappointment that we don't have any like naked kids running by in the background.
Oh, just you wait. That might happen.
I came out into the garage to do this. That's so I'm not near the naked child.
No, this, it kind of started with this inspiration of, as my belly began to grow with my first pregnancy, I really started to feel my mortality, but also realized how auditions and opportunities were really drying up at that time. And I think a lot of artistic women start to feel that. And then my husband came up with a good kind of off-the-cuff solution at one point. It was like, well, why don't we just make a movie? And I kind of sat with that for a second and then was like, well, yeah, okay, how would we do that? And it just kind of spiraled out of this brainstorm of like, if it's just us two filming it and being in it for the most part, how would we make that happen? What would it be? And then we kind of just were like, well, the easiest thing is to use what we have. And what we have is a pregnancy and our home. And we really, I think the same night, it just kind of kismet was happening there. I'd been reading some articles on, there were so many articles at the time and even more now, coming out where the mainstream media as well as social media were just kind of tossing out this kind of flippant references to a second civil war, and but as if they were almost cheering it on, or like it was inevitable, and without any sort of in-depth processing of what that would mean and how awful that would actually be. And so I kind of took that to heart and was like, well, what if we were facing having a baby in the middle of a war? The women deal with that all over the world. I think in America, a lot of people would ignore it until they couldn't anymore. And
absolutely, I think that's being seen. Yeah, exactly.
So we kind of ran with that, and we at the time certainly weren't planning for all of the events that spiraled since 2015 to go down, but we took advantage of some of them, and we went to different protests, and we went to places where there was a huge police presence, and filmed these things and kind of folded them into our story. And since it wasn't shot with a script per se, because we knew we had to be super flexible because pregnancy is unpredictable, as was the state of the nation, we pretty much had like a whiteboard with Post-it notes and ideas for scenes that we kept moving around. So it was a unique beast in almost every sense of filmmaking. But it, like I said, really was supposed to be a cautionary tale, and it's downright scary to see so many things that that we improv'd or wrote for this becoming things I see in the news. Also because I'm like, I could have just gone and filmed a tank. Why did I need to pay for it? Not kidding. Call up Dave and be like, hey, can you do a tank? So yeah, it's a surreal filmmaking experience, but also one that kind of applies to how filmmaking might be moving forward in the at least short-term future, because to do it with just a pod of people or who you have at your disposal and social distancing, it is possible.
Yeah, I do think that it's good. I was thinking that watching it, that it will inspire people to figure out ways to make movies now, even though it's harder. But also, I would like to encourage those listening. We're not saying make a pandemic movie. We're saying find a way to make a movie about your life somehow.
Yes.
Because I don't want to, we're getting submissions for our Blackmagic Collective Film Festival, and half of them are pandemic movies. So we're just like, bye. But we can't take all these quarantine movies, But one of the things I loved best about your movie was how you did utilize the, protests and like police brigades, because it makes it feel high budget. It makes it feel like you locked off streets, but it was just there for you. Yay.
We did quite a lot of the guerrilla filmmaking that indie filmmakers all over have to partake of. Yes, we used what was there. And
so you guys have a lot of your cast, especially you and Charlie, you have these heavy monologues where it's like just you and the camera. Would you do that? We just like everybody go away, Charlie go away, I'm going to put the camera on and see what comes out?
Usually it was at least the two of us to make sure everything was in focus, because otherwise I would end up spewing something out and the camera would have dropped or whatever. We also discovered that fun roadblock. But yeah, so it'd be two of us, and we'd have at least an outline for where we needed to start and finish, where we would like to go along the way. And then we would just improv. There were a few scenes where we did have some of these wonderful people come and join us. And for those, we would have a script, at least, for bones, and then encourage improvisation around it. But for instance, for like Tara's scene in the clinic, a lot of that is specific medical jargon that we needed to kind of stick to. That I had my sister, who's a nurse, give us approval on what would be said, what would be utilized at that time. And so for those, we had a little more scripted action. But even in that situation, it was, in the hallway of a place we rented briefly. It was a lot of shoot and go magic. But yeah, this was trusting the actors that we did have involved to really be able to create and give them the space to. And then the magic especially was thanks to my amazing editor, Rachel King, now Henry, who just has such a wonderful eye for putting this together and has such knowledge where in the areas that I lack, which that is key to building your team, get people who are smarter in areas where you're not, to help me steer and guide the story. And then sometimes notice like, this is great, but we need a scene that does this in between them that we were able to go back and get.
I was going to ask you how much did post shape the story? And I know Stephanie and Dave, you were both involved in post a lot by doing voiceovers and other talents. Do you guys have thoughts on your input and how you saw it shaping up as you got involved? Not all at once.
Post was like 50% on this particular endeavor.
In terms of when we recorded the audio, when Paula came in, she already had a very good idea of what she wanted. So I didn't shape the narrative at all. I was just there, and she described it, and it sounded really interesting. I kind of get an idea, but I was like, wait, this is footage of just when you were pregnant, and now you're editing it together. And so it was. I just went with her. I just trusted her because I'm friends and I know her and stuff. And I also know a lot of these other people working on other projects. I'm like, all right, okay, and then we kind of, we had some flexibility, if we added some extra noises or whatever, just in case she needed it and stuff. And then she took it away. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, yes, I totally see it. But it was really Paula's, roadmap and plan. From my end, I was just there just for the audio.
And a wonderful job she did of it, because a lot of this world is built out with sound, because we, like you said, to show high budget stuff, you might cut to the, police dragging somebody away. But for our purposes, you just see my reaction to what I'm hearing. So we had to build all that out realistically just with sound. So the part that all of these people played, especially like Stephanie, being able to capture amazing performances and help me guide.
Well, one of the first moments where you really get sucked in the film and it starts to make your heart pound is when ICE comes to take away what we assume is your neighbor. Was that you, Stephanie?
She was directing that part, like ADRing, engineering for me.
Yeah.
But no, that's the neighbor's played by an amazing actress named Regina Saldivar, and she is a friend as well. And I love her performance. And then the ICE agents, we have quite a few, including Yuri Lowenthal, Tara's husband, and we have Percy Daggs the third, who you may know from Veronica Mars. It plays one of our agents, and David plays an ICE agent as well, as does Neil Kaplan, who is also a fantastic voiceover actor. So with all of those voices, sound is able to mix in this, and I don't even think, you haven't heard the final sound mix because the version up now is a slightly older version, is really becoming what I wanted it to be. Just kind of that heartbreaking, terrifyingly real experience of hearing this happening and kind of being frozen. There's a moment where my character almost goes to intervene, and then because it's so close and so dangerous, she doesn't. And sitting with that and what that means, I think as a nation is sort of important right now.
Before I get more techie with you guys, I wanted to, Tara, can you talk about the creative process working with Paula as a director? Because I've known Paula for a long time as an actor. I think most of us have.
Sure.
So we want the dirt.
I will say she's super talented in any hat she puts on. But she, as with her acting, she's got a very clear vision of what she wants. And Paula knew exactly what angles she needed and what shots she needed to tell the story that she had in her mind. And so I think, much like Stephanie was saying, you sort of are like, okay, I trust you. Let's do it. What is it you want from me? And we will make that happen. And like she said, we did have some freedom to improvise, but especially with the scene that I was doing with her, there were technical parts that needed to be said because it is medical and it is jargon, and you need to make sure that you're giving your performance while still maintaining the factual information from a scientific point. But yeah, she's like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to, and it was definitely run and gun. Like we all showed up, we had 40 minutes or whatever. I forget, we probably had 2 hours. I don't know. It goes really fast, But like she knew from the beginning exactly what we were going to be doing, and we sort of like got there. We all got ready. We did it, and we did several different takes. And she's like, "Yeah, we got it. I'm good. We have exactly what we need." And yeah.
So we have a question that has come in, which I think will bring America into this conversation as well. The question is, can you share what was the budget range and how the film was financed? You want to talk about all that?
Sure. So the production side was all financed just via myself, slightly dipping into my children's college fund. It was very low, like super low. I believe the entire feature will come under 50,000. But then when we got to post after picture lock, I realized there wasn't much else in my pot that I could pull from. So I started applying to grants, and one of those was the Chimera Film Fund that I'm so excited to have. I awarded that. So I'm sure America can touch on that a little bit.
Yes. Hi, I'm America, and the Chimera Project has a finishing funds program that we do every year called To Get Her. And Paula, I've known for a while, and I've always admired her. I was thinking about something she said earlier, which is her husband said something offhanded comment, and that's a dangerous thing to do around Paula, because if you say an offhanded comment, it will end up happening. And in the best possible way, in the way that you never even thought was like even conceivable, because she just gets things done and she does them in the highest caliber. So even though she's talking about that budget range, you watch that trailer and you're like, normal people would do a trailer for that much money, not an entire feature. And the entire feature is phenomenal. So anyway, I knew that she was working on the film, and I encouraged her to submit to it. And what was really fun is we have a whole set system of judges and everybody who's going through and screening. And people who didn't know that I knew her would message me and say, hey, look, I know I'm not really supposed to do this, but could you please make sure that this one film gets pushed to the finals? And it was always Paula's film. And obviously I can't do that we have to keep a checks and balances. But it was just so fun to see the process of the selection, that hers was always the standout film. And people were doing things that they have never done before, which is purposely messaging me to say, hey, have you seen this film? You need to make sure you see this film. Just make sure you see this film. And even my partner, Shauna, was so blown away with the film that she was determined, like once it got selected, to help set her up with any kind of distribution help she could get. And she just kept raving about the vision of it and how unique and fresh it was. So we're really thrilled to have been able to help out even a little bit with this project, because it's pretty special.
It was far more than a little bit. I
wish we could have written you a check for another 50,000. Maybe next time.
It was amazing to have them in my corner, and it gave me the confidence to then springboard that into doing a crowdfunder to get just that little extra over the hump hill, and we were successful in that. And it was sort of crazy timing in that it ended literally like a few days before lockdown happened here in LA. So I think. I don't know if I would have had the guts even afterwards to complete it had it afterwards.
Right.
But because of the timing, I knew that I needed to, because that funding is going toward my amazing post team, like Dave, I knew I needed to get that for them, because it's work they can continue to do from home, as well as obviously completing my dream. It's not completely unselfish, but to support them through this crazy, nutty time too. So I think that really drove home, was my drive at the end to finish the crowdfunding. And because America also opened up an amazing opportunity with Slam Dance to do a screening of the film here at ArcLight, I suddenly had a deadline, and it was like, all right, all guns forward, let's get this puppy done. Obviously that's slightly postponed because theaters aren't a thing at the moment, which is good. We need healthy. But so we're taking the summer to really polish her up perfectly. But
I always tell all filmmakers, like no matter what you're doing, you got to give yourself a deadline. You have to. If you want to write something, if you want to, like it took 3 years to finish my film Playing with Beethoven, because we didn't really have anything that was forcing us. So it was just like, you will tool and you'll tool and you'll tool forever. I mean, also when you're working low budget, it takes forever to get things done.
There's that, yes.
So we have a question popped in that was the film non-union, and did you guys worry about having insurance?
It was union. It's SAG. And that was a battle with SAG initially, because when it was just Charlie and I in the very beginning phases, I basically shot like test footage And I had to take that into SAG because the pushback from them there was
They want a script.
it's a script. You can't do a film without a script. You can't do a film without a crew. You can't do a film without a budget. And I was like, well, yes, I can. Look. And I kind of had to really fight to find yes, they also wanted, payroll and insurance and things, which at the time, if it was just us, was a little silly to pay payroll just to pay myself as an actor. So we had to negotiate and find a way and a contract that worked. And for us, the one that worked was the new media contract at the time that was in place that we're grandfathered into, that we're then able to roll into a theatrical contract once we get a screening or, distribution. So
Right.
yes, all the actors are covered under SAG's contract and will be paid accordingly. Mm-hmm.
I think one of my biggest bones I pick with SAG is that they don't make it easier for their people to make projects. Like, you're a SAG paying member, you pay for them. They should help you when it's time to make something for yourself.
That is always a battle. As my husband's big on the union side of SAG, and I am, both an actor and a producer. So I do see both sides of it. And it has been, especially on the low end of the budget, creator, actor, arena pool, yes, of SAG. It's been a struggle. And they haven't always had people have had solutions that would work really well for, micro budget stuff yet. So, but they do have something called WWs, which are meetings. If you're a SAG member, they're doing them online now for animation and stuff, that you're supposed to go in and contribute your ideas, right? To help get a better contract. And I think in general, SAG members don't participate in those. And I think if we did more, we'd be able to help guide the process a little more. It's just most of us don't. But yes, there are many quibbles I have on the producer side for how easy it is or not easy to work union.
So I want to get techie with you guys, especially since we have so many techie people here. Let's talk a lot about, so part of what you're doing is it's so low budget, it has to be to get this done. So in post, what kind of stuff are you guys using? Are you, like Stephanie, I can see you're in a studio right now. Is that something did you guys rent a studio? Did you have a place you went to?
We did much of it at Stephanie's.
Well, mine is like a home studio. I work a lot in post-production and basically voiceover recording for, making things into English, a lot of dubbing, you would say. So we have a booth here, and I'm very lucky because it actually allows me to work as a voice actor much easier during the lockdown, and have very little issue with home remote recording. So I'm very, very lucky. And I also have 7 different mics. But lots of times, with my fellow actors and friends and stuff like that, I try to support them. And since it is like a home recording situation, I do work for a company that is bi-coastal, and in their New York space, they have a commercial space with 3 rooms that they can record in. But in the LA space, it's kind of just like this satellite home garage studio. So it's not booked around the clock. So whenever I can help out a friend, whether it be hey, I have an important audition, it needs to sound good. Well, obviously not now during the lockdown, but prior to, or if it's I have a pilot or have a project, if I know them and they're good people, I'll be
do you have recommendations though for the people who are listening to this podcast, who are watching us, that say, I need to do ADR for my film, but I don't have money? So is there something they can do at home to make something work?
Oh gosh, this is really gets into a crazy, a rabbit hole, because it's not lots of voice actors will ask about what's the best mic, or what's the best interface, or what's the best preamp. And the thing is each thing affects the other thing. So let's say you have a bad space, right? You don't have a very well treated room. Well, then you really don't want a really great mic, because the really great mic will pick up that you have kind of a crappy room. So if you get a mediocre mic, it's good enough that it's clear enough sound, but it doesn't pick up how bad your room is. You know what I mean? So it's not exactly a one-to-one. There's all sorts of, and then the other thing too is if you're trying to do location audio, if it's supposed to sound like ADR location audio versus a clean narration, there's different things that you can do. But there's always, the good news is that there's always flexibility. We had a project where it was dubbing, and they stunt cast one of the voice actors. They stunt cast, sorry, this light is involved again, I know. They stunt cast Jared Padalecki. And he was not in New York or LA. I think he was in Canada somewhere. I don't remember which Canadian city. So we looked into studios there, and you know, it was more than $500 an hour. And the owner of the company that I work with, Michael, the company's called NYV Post. He was like, you know what? I could just take this budget and I'm going to bring a mobile rig. And he rented a hotel room, and which at the time, I guess there was nothing going on at the hotel room, so it was very empty. And he somehow, and this just has to do with Michael, he's one of those guys where like really lucky stuff happens to him. The manager of the hotel gave him the penthouse suite for no extra money other than the base rate. So he was paying, I don't know, like $200 a night for the penthouse suite. And then he just treated, you know, he found a place that wasn't too reflective, you know, and he put a bunch of treatment and stuff. And then he recorded Jared Padalecki on a laptop, you know, cut the budget by so much, because he got like for you know, a day of the room rental, what it cost, like, not, it was less than an hour rent, you know? So there always are things to do. You kind of can get creative, but like to say the exact solution is kind of difficult, not knowing what you're going for and what the space is. They do now have things where they have like vocal shields in a way where you can put this it's almost like a little tent around your head, you know. That's an option, although those tend to sound kind of dark, make the sound kind of dark, and it's not even so like boxy, but it's because it's kind of sounds like a little like yelling into a pillow. The smaller space that you're in, the better you have to treat it. The larger space that you're in, you can kind of get away with some things, but then also you're looking at reflective surfaces. But you don't necessarily need expensive foam. Like sometimes blankets or sound blankets, or even just regular blankets and pillows, and making sure though things are not at hard angles. So like, I know what's really popular is like studio bricks. It's like a really famous, like a fancy kind of like, and they're really great, but they're really complete boxes. And sometimes you got to kind of put some more pillows or blankets to make sure it doesn't, you know, sound or waves. And when you bounce off flat, you know, parallel, you can get strange.
I think what Stephanie's doing is making sure that all of us always hire her to do our sound.
You should.
Because we're all like, okay. Dave, I want to ask you, because I don't think everybody always understands the difference. Like, what is the difference between the editor and the online editor?
Basically, I'm the one putting all the pieces together at the end of everything. I guess that's the shorthand version. So basically, I'm taking the VFX stuff that I'm generating and the original footage and putting that together, you know, in the final resolution, and then we get that sent off to color, and then it comes back, and that all gets put back together with the final audio. So basically, as far as that goes, I'm sort of the person who's putting the pieces of the puzzle all together at the end.
I think
puzzle piecer.
It's a very important job, because I have to do it for myself right now, and I don't like it. I'm always scared I'm like missing a piece. Yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible fear.
Because we shot in 4K, so though we didn't edit it that way because it takes so long, you know, to render and otherwise. So when it's edited, thanks to Rachel, we then pass it on, and he can match up the pieces in 4K with the VFX that he's done and the sound, and squish it all together. But to touch on just some like low-end sound fixes, we used a Zoom mic to capture most of the sound, some lavs on occasion. Thank you, America. Or thank you, Tara, for letting us borrow those. And then I have a Sheh MV88 Plus mic, which is good for podcasting often and good for voiceover on the fly if you're mobile, but also good for just going into the same room that you shot in if you need to capture, you know, an extra line for ADR and recording it in the space that you originally recorded it. So we have done some of that, and we'll play the scene if we need to on an iPad. But luckily, all of the ADR we had didn't have to match lips or camera. So,
right. And I know we always say as filmmakers, we as producers, as indie people, we say you pay for anything, you pay for sound. But I think with your film, that's a really hard thing because you're just filming on the fly at times. So you have to be flexible on your own and figure it out on your own, I think.
Instead of looking at it as like sound has to fit in what we filmed, we looked almost as a slightly different tool with sound, like it was a separate character.
That's smart.
And we were able to make it, craft it to fit what we had, as opposed to craft it to fit what we already had. We used it to fill in the gaps as the glue to fold everything together. But and also I lucked out in casting all these amazing people that happen to also be often very talented voice actors. So they have booths at home, which definitely made it easier. If I'm like, I just need this one line, can you say this and email it to me? So yeah, cast voice actors.
I have a question from the audience. Can you discuss what type of equipment you use during production? They're curious about cameras, lenses, lighting. We've already talked about mics. Did you rent, borrow? How did you basically get it done?
An amazing consult was, before we even started all this, was to sit down with a fantastic DP and be like, what camera should we invest in if we're just going to buy it? That super camera noobs could use and would level up our filmmaking. And he suggested one called, it was the Samsung NX1. And what it allowed us to do was, it's great for low light if we didn't have fancy lights because we were mostly using natural light. It has a touch screen where I can touch the person that I want to be in focus, and it will keep that person in focus as they move. So I didn't have to worry about constantly changing depth of field and things. It was very not pro DP friendly to make a pretty shot. So that one I did like. I got one simple lens for it and a few lighting setups, and it was as low budget as one can get. But we just purchased that. I think it was about $3,000 for that camera.
Makes sense. And now you can make movies forever. Although once you do a movie like this, you're like, I'm never doing that again. That's what we all say. It's like having a baby. I'm never doing that again. Cut to 2 years later. Let's have another one.
Exactly. It was, it was an amazing experience. And like you said, I would probably try a different experience next time. But glad to have had it.
So technical wise, I would love to, how many of you are directors in here? Is it just Paula in America? Is anybody else directing?
No.
Dave, a little bit. But then you're all kind of somehow or some way. America, because you act too sometimes, America, don't you? Or am I just thinking that?
Yeah,
I was like, am I making that up? But I feel like I know that. I would love to talk sort of like what your guys' favorite part of the director-actor relationship is. And you can come from wherever your heart desires. America, I'd love if you want to start with that.
Yeah, sure. I have acted and I still really love it. My main focus and passion is directing. But having spent some time acting, it just makes it like such an amazing conversation when you're talking to your actors, because you can really help them dig in and ask the questions that inspire them to come up with things. The best, this is a saying that's been around forever, but your casting is what 85% of your storytelling, right? And I think this percentage might be slightly less in film because it's so much more tech. I think that was for theater, but it's, if you have, in my last feature, my actors were phenomenal. And sometimes with our days, we were running long, we didn't have time for as many takes or as much coverage as we would have liked. And the fact that they could nail it straight out of the gate was just something that was incredible, that you could rely on those performances. But just having that conversation and digging into the character and asking them the questions that open up their minds. And that's the best part. To me, that's the best part, is seeing what they come up with.
Does anything come to mind for you as some moment you had on set where you were just like, you just get, that feeling you get as a director where you're just like, yes, this is exactly, like I'll jump up and down on set, like this is exactly what I saw. You ever have those moments?
And usually they come when you're like, okay, we're good. Do you want to do another one for fun? And then they're like, sure. And you do another one for fun. And it's just like, you thought you were happy with the last take, but then what they do when they're just having fun and they're not worried about getting it right, and they're not worried about when they know they're safe, like those are the takes where you're like, thank you. That was amazing. I also love when they like shoot for the moon and totally miss and end up somewhere on Pluto, and you're laughing and you're like, that was so wrong and so amazing. And I won't be able to use that, but like, keep that up, because when you go that far, then the things that you can explore in between are awesome too. So that's my favorite thing to tell actors is you can't be wrong. Just do something amazing and fun and playful. And even if we're not going to use it for this movie, it will inspire something we can use in this movie. But yeah, it's usually when they're playing.
America is such an inspiration for me, and watching her amazing directorial style, which it's aspirational. It really is, guys. But I am a type in that I tend to want to control. And what this entire movie was an experience in getting myself out of that comfort zone, because I had to, time-wise and structure of movie, just kind of give a seed and trust. And what it was so eye-opening and wonderful. And that each actor just blossomed and would bring this tiny seed of what I thought was a great idea and just make it turn into this amazing thing that I could have never even come up with, and leveled it up. So even just like Dave doing voiceover, like I'd send him a line and be like, kind of like this. And then he just sent me 3 takes that each one was progressively more fantastic, that I was like, thank you. And I wasn't even there to direct him. I just kind of gave him a direction, let him run with it. If I trusted the actors and just let go a little on the director side and empowered them, what I was getting back was just tenfold. And that was an experience for myself as well as hopefully for them.
And I just want to say one other thing, speaking of exactly what she's saying about trusting your actors. I have an actor friend who's like a curmudgeonly old guy who's been around forever, and he's phenomenal. But his biggest beef is that television and movies are so cutty right now that the filmmakers don't trust their actors. And I always think about that. And so when you walk up, and you're a filmmaker, and you walk up to your actor and you say, I trust you to knock this out of the park. Give me a reason to not be able to cut into this. Give me a reason that this will be so great that I won't need to cut it. And then letting them seeing how their faces light up and they're like, oh, that's great. Like that's the best part, because like Paula said, when you can trust your actors and then take it so much further than you ever, like you want that for all of the people on your team. You want everyone on your team to be better than you. That's how you make a phenomenal movie. And you said that earlier, Paula, too.
Oh, the hard thing is directing yourself, because I don't necessarily always blossom my own ideas quite as well as other people do for me. That directing myself is not my favorite experience.
How did you go about it? Did you do playback and then?
Yes, far too much, probably. And then what I would do is kind of hand it over to Rachel and trust her to do a lot of the snipping out of those monologues you mentioned. Might have been like 8 times longer than they, ended up being, because she would be like, I can lose all this. And watching it back, I was like, thank you for leveling up my performance in this as well as the story. So when you're too close to it, it's just harder to tweak yourself. I found. Some people.
So Tara, as an actor, and not even just with Paula, but in general, are there things that you love that your director does for you, or?
Well, obviously what they were both saying about feeling like you're trusted, feeling like you're safe to play, and feeling like the choices you make, even if they don't always work, are valued, makes you come alive, because it makes you feel more like you're playing and more willing and able to reach parts of yourself that may be more vulnerable or more scary to get in touch with, because that's our whole purpose when we're acting, is to sort of make our vessel, ourselves open and say, sure, I can get to anger, I can get to sadness, I can get to fear, I can get to grief, I can get to all these places because I know I'm safe to do that. And I know that you trust that what I'm going to give you to bring these words to life, to bring this scene to life, is safe. And if I'm steering it in the wrong direction because the choices I'm making are moving us away from the storytelling that we're trying to do together communally, I trust that you are going to help me stay on track. And I trust that you will help me if I'm making choices that don't support the story because we have a bigger arc to tell, that you'll help me so that I'm free to play. And it's this idea of, it's a trust fall between the director and the actor and the other actors, so that you know that where you're playing is safe, because it is all just pretend. We don't have to go be murderers to play murderers. We want to bring
thank goodness
to life, right? And I think that's what's nice when you find a director that you feel that camaraderie ship with, and that sense of like, great, we're in this together. We all want to tell this story. And now I'm going to go to those deep, dark, scary places because that's what I'm here to do, but it's safe to do that, and we're all okay in this. Like we're all part of this because we want to be a part of this, and that's what makes it fun.
Awesome. Two really quick questions from the audience before we move into our intuitive discussion. One is, when you were shooting anything outside, did you ever worry about getting permits or have discussions with Film LA?
We did not have discussions with Film LA. Did I worry about it? I wouldn't say worry. I would say I had it in the back of my mind. I kind of knew where I could play and couldn't play. Being as 90% of it's kind of shot just in my house or my yard, we got away with a lot of that.
Most of the stuff is in your car as well. Like when you see
yeah.
a lot of the stuff that's you might have gotten in trouble for.
The stuff that was out and about, because the camera we used looks like just a camera, not a big movie camera, you can get away with a lot more. And also, being a pregnant lady, they ask you less.
Well, I was going to say, too, for filmmakers who are looking to film something where it feels high budget, I actually did a music video, Don't Silence Me, during the Women's March. And we did everything. We stopped in streets and put down signs, and police would just look at us, but they didn't stop us. So I think doing filming during these events actually might help you out if you don't have money.
They figure people are covering it for journalism and otherwise. And so, yeah, when we would go to marches, when we go to protests, when we go to conventions and otherwise, you're allowed to film these things, whether you're doing a, online news or a podcast or what have you. So why not shoot it for a film? Granted, guerrilla filmmaking is always a little skirting in the gray areas of what you're supposed to do. There is.
And final quick question is, did you hire a makeup artist, or did everybody just do their own hair and makeup? Also same for wardrobe.
We just did our own hair and makeup. Yeah. Own hair and makeup, and wardrobe was mostly me just coordinating, like being like, these are the colors I'm looking for, or here's some scrubs. And then mostly it was interesting to keep track of Charlie's in mine because we appear throughout it. But yeah, it was wearing a lot of hats.
So normally on Intuitive Filmmaker Podcast, it's me and a guest, and my guest picks a card. But since you're not here with me, and we all have germs, Paula, I'm going to just shuffle, and then when you feel the need to have me stop, you tell me to stop.
Okay. Stop.
This is so insane.
What is it?
So there's probably at least 60 cards in this deck. And we've done this one other time live. And and I just shuffle randomly, you saw me, and the last live with the last film team, they got the same word.
Dang.
I think that's so weird. But the word is independence.
Oh.
What comes up for you, or any of you who ever feels something first when you hear the word independence?
Well, I would say it's empowering. Like, the idea is, like, in a way, when you look at this film, it was empowering for Paula to do it on her own. It was empowering to tell a story about being a woman and going through this crazy experience. It's empowering to be able to share the experience with women all around the world, and the independence of making it and telling a story that you're excited and passionate about and that you're scared of is very, very exciting and very powerful. So I would say that independence feels like,
I love that.
very empowering.
That is Ace's answer. I second Tara. Yeah, it was lovely to find out that I could tell a story, even given the constraints that I was working with of being pregnant, of no budget, essentially, and just our two-man crew. So yeah, independence is being able to stand on your own 2 feet, but I would say that the standing in that independence, especially with this particular film, really shone a light on the interdependence of all of us, for me, and how it doesn't matter if you're not paying attention to the outside world, it's going to come and affect you at some point, because we all are connected. And really noting that, I think, as well, and noticing your individual responsibility to stay informed and stay active and stay kind to each other, understanding. I would hope that's somewhere that we all land.
Does anything come up for Dave or Stephanie? Because you guys do a lot of stuff. You're actually on your own doing a lot of the work you do.
Yeah, in my case, it's very freeing as well. It's from the VFX standpoint, it's great to, like a lot of the stuff I do is invisible, and it's meant to be invisible. There's I think 3 shots in this that are that sort of thing, where it was a logo on a mug that needed to change. And so when it's done, hopefully you have no idea that it was a VFX shot. But for some of the other stuff where it's, it's like popping the cork on creativity when it's an independent thing. And especially in this case, like there were some shots where it's like Paula would just take it and, pan up to the sky to look at the thing that's not there. And so it was like, okay, so we want something cool. And she had great direction as to what we were going to put there and how we were going to do it and everything else. But in the middle, I would get to go and I would get to play and, putting up planes and stuff. I'd say, hey, what do you think of this flight path? And I'd send her a thing and she'd be like, can I come from this way? And can they do this? And so it was a lot of fun to be able to just play, and it all comes back to that same director actor interactivity thing. It also works on the VFX side where it's like, whenever you can, I totally felt safe doing something that might be stupid because, it might spark an idea. And it might, it was fun no matter what. And so,
always get a team that's smarter than you in all the areas that you're not, like this guy. He's amazing. Just having the knowledge that he has in so many areas was invaluable, of me being like, what type of military plane might come from here? He's like, here are 37 options, but this one would be the most likely. Like, just the depth of the knowledge and the creativity is so appreciated from my team. Thank you.
Stephanie, has anything come up for you when you heard the word independence? It doesn't even about this film, just your creativity, your life in general.
I think that it has a lot to do with what both Tara and Paula said about both empowerment and also interconnectivity. I remember my mom told me, it's kind of not related, but she remember as a very young child, she told me not to rely on a man, not so be focused on getting married because blah, blah, blah. You need to be able to do everything on your own. So that kind of stuck with me. But then in my career, because I do a lot of things, I also act and voice direct. And actually the audio technical side is probably what I do the least of. But I learned it because I was first an actor, and then I learned how to do that. And then it's like, okay, well, if I can learn how to edit my own stuff, then now I have that power and I don't have to rely on someone. If I can learn how to do this, then I don't have to do that. And I didn't try to be a one-woman machine, but the thing that I've come to realize is that with every new job that I do, it has taught me how to be better at the other jobs. Because even though you can be like, I'm independent, like and I'm sure a lot of these people here also wear many hats, so like being a director helps you as an actor, and also being an actor helps you as a director because you've sat in those shoes. And now you're not only operating from like what you're supposed to do in your job, but also it's like, what can I do to make that other person's job easier? And all the little aspects. So, I mean, that's what I kind of think about of how.
I love it. I love it. It's one thing I always tell directors. I'm like, if you don't know how to edit, you're doing yourself a disservice as a director. You need to learn to edit. America, for some reason, when I hear independence, I immediately went to you. I have this there's something about you that I think what you symbolize for women, I think you help women become independent. There's something about you, maybe it's your energy, it's your Chimera project, but it's who you are and inspiring other women that they can do it. I think that's so powerful. I don't know what independence what came up for you when you heard the word.
You just made me so happy. I thought you were going to go with some sort of a pun on my name, and then and then you went into the soul of my being.
But now I feel bad that I didn't think of the pun.
No, it was so much better. Thank you. I mean, that's my goal in life, is to encourage and inspire, and specifically in female filmmaking, but anybody who has a unique voice. So thank you for saying that. You just lit my day. It's interesting. Everyone has said everything that I would say. I've been watching the TV show Hollywood on Netflix, and it's a really fun show. But the thing that I keep thinking about, I'm watching it, is I wouldn't have been able to survive back then, because the only way to make a movie was with Ace Pictures or whatever studio you're dealing with. But we live in this amazing time where if you want to make a movie, you just pick up your phone, right? Yeah. No one can stop you. No one can stop you. You can make whatever you want. And then you just start meeting other like individuals who can inspire you, that you can learn from, that you can teach. And the more you learn, the better you get. You're going to suck, which is totally okay. The first couple of times you do something, you're going to suck. And that's awesome, because that's how you learn from what you're doing. So independence means failure. But failure isn't a bad thing. And I think for so long we've thought about failure as a bad thing. Independence is that you in your own little box with your group of friends can fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up, without the magnifying glass of a massive studio and feeling self-conscious about it. And then once you feel really confident about it and you've grown your tribe of people, then the studios are ready for you, and they're going to be like, where the hell have you been our whole lives? So independence is wonderful. It's exhausting. I mean, I know I'm super positive about stuff usually. Independence is exhausting because you have to teach yourself how to edit, and you have to teach yourself how to light, and you have to teach yourself how to speak all those different languages. But that's the thing that I've learned, is that I was really frustrated that my journey has taken so long as a director. But then when I finally actually got to start working with studios, and I could speak the language of every single department, that made my life 1,000 times easier. And it made me feel empowered, and that I knew that I belonged on the set without a doubt. So independence is exhausting, but it's also a gift. And it's interesting that we always say indie film instead of independent film. And there's kind of like a smirk with indie, right? But independent film is actually pretty fucking awesome, because we did this against all of the odds, all of them, every single one that comes up. God, you just made my day, Jen. Thank you for saying that.
I feel like we have to end on that. It's amazing. But Paul, I do want to get one final thought from you. But, I don't normally read the card, but I feel compelled to read this card, because it says, on independence, the more you learn to feed yourself on the inside and care for the inner child, the more freestanding you become. I just think that's really powerful. And it's kind of what everybody's been saying here.
Yes. I think building on that, and just, and what America said, like, if I can do this at my most vulnerable time, you can do this. You can tell your story. You can get all the resources that you currently have at your disposal and tell this first little story that's going to lead to your next story. So if anything, I hope it stands as both an inspiration for people to start getting their voice out there, as well as a little introspection on where we are as a nation right now, and that we really do need to stay engaged to keep this as a cautionary tale.
And with that, we are going to say thank you all so much for your time, for joining us at the Blackmagic Collective's Intuitive Filmmaker Podcast live event. Thank you to all of our audience. You are amazing sauce. As we go out, I want to again thank our sponsors, Blackmagic Design and Sigma, for always supporting independent filmmaking. And make sure you check out our website, because for Blackmagic Collective, we have so many offerings coming up. We have next week, we have an all-access panel that's for and by disabled filmmakers. And I think all of us need to learn and understand how we can help all filmmakers be in our conversation. Next week, we'll have another film team, and it's with a film that was selected for Tribeca. And sadly, Tribeca went away, so we're going to hear all about that. And other than that, have an amazing journey, find your independence, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to the Intuitive Filmmaker Podcast. If you're enjoying your time listening, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Please rate and review, as that helps others find the show, which helps us continue to bring you great content. We're also on all of your other favorite podcast apps, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. This show is supported by listeners just like you. Please visit intuitivefilmmaker.com to see all the ways you can donate, including our merch shop and direct donations through PayPal. Thank you for being on this incredible journey with us.